Herbalists don't know so easily how to deal with cannabis. It's only been recently. A lot of the American Herbal Society didn't want to really embrace cannabis until recently. It was more, you got to take your nettles for this, you got to take your damiana for this. So it's assimilated more integrated now.
Welcome to Higher Spirits, a podcast of elevated cannabis conversations with me, your host, Lexi Kafka. Here we explore the powerful intersections of cannabis, spirituality, and mindfulness to better understand how to cultivate a conscious relationship with this plant. We journey with thought leaders and experts who bring a unique perspective on how cannabis connects us deeper to ourselves, our history, and the planet. Hello, Plant Fam! Oh my goodness, I am so excited for today's episode. It is a super special one for a few reasons. One, it was recorded live in New York City, so not over the interwebs. I got to sit down with my guest. And the second reason it's so special is my guest. His name is Lou Sagar, and he is the CEO and founder of Alchemist Kitchen. And Alchemist Kitchen, for those of you who don't know, is an amazing herbal apothecary in New York City. It's a super vibey spot in Soho filled with adaptogenic herbs and functional mushroom tinctures and an elixir bar and all kinds of yummy herbal goodies and ritual items to help you feel better in a holistic way. So Lou also offers, this is super unique, he also offers one-on-one microdosing and plant medicine consultations at the store. So this means that he's helped thousands of New Yorkers over the years and talked to them one-on-one about their concerns and their ailments and their plant medicine use. So he has a really unique pulse on the city and society like no one else. And I was really interested in chatting with him for this very reason. And this episode is super special because Alchemist Kitchen was the place that I really started my plant journey back in 2018. Lou and his business have been at the forefront of plant medicine. It was the first place that little Lexi here bought CBD. And I bought it at the time because I had a really bad neck injury that resulted in a herniated disc. And I was prescribed Valium to take nightly to reduce my anxiety and help me sleep. I could not sleep without it. And I wanted to get off of this regimen. I was 26 years old. I didn't want to be on Valium for the long term. So I went into Alchemist Kitchen. I bought some high-dose CBD and one of their herbalists recommended a regimen for me and it worked. I was able to get off Valium. I was able to sleep through the night and I was able to feel amazing results in my neck. And after this, I became kind of obsessed with the plant as a plant medicine, not just as a recreational substance. And I started to take cannabis science classes in the basement of the old Alchemist Kitchen shop. And actually, when I was just moving out of my place in Topanga, I found my notebook from this class and I was just reflecting on how far I've come, how far this plant has come, and how far the industry has come in the past 7 years. Now, it might not be as surprising, but Alchemist Kitchen was the first place I really encountered people who talked about cannabis from a holistic herbalism perspective as another plant in the herbalist toolkit and not just a recreational substance. So you saw it on the shelf next to damiana, nettles, reishi, right? It wasn't different from all of those. So this was so expansive for me at the time as I was getting into more holistic healing in my own witchy relationship, an intentional relationship with weed. So when Lou suggested, who's become a friend now, suggested that we do a live podcast episode, it was a full fuck yes. And although landing in New York has been a little abrupt after the LA fires, honestly, it's moments like this that I feel like the guiding hand of the universe, and it feels really like I'm coming back to my roots. So this episode is special for those reasons. But I do have to note that we were in the beautiful store of Alchemist Kitchen, and it's an old, gorgeous New York City building, but has creaky floors and squeaky doors, and there was people in the space. So the audio isn't optimal. Sometimes words drop off, and I am so sorry. I promise that my audio technical skills will improve as this podcast grows, and hopefully as I do more live recordings. But the conversation nonetheless is magnetic. Lou has such an amazing perspective on the plant. He has so much wisdom, and we vibe and we align on so many things that I'd never even talked to him about, and I was surprised to hear. Like the fact that weed is too strong. Shocker, every guest is saying it. The fact that we need more intention with cannabis use, especially from a medicinal perspective, and we need more education of bud tenders. And then one thing that I was so happy you brought up is that we need to get as close to the source as possible with all plant medicines, all plants that we consume, including cannabis. And we talk about other plant medicines too, cacao, psilocybin. We talk about kanna, we talk about ayahuasca. All of these things, we need to go as close to the source as possible, which is why I'm so adamant about working with regenerative sun-grown farmers in the Emerald Triangle of California. And I was so happy he brought up the fact that like New York, as amazing as it is, does not grow the best weed. It just doesn't. And we need to leave that to California, to Oregon, to Washington. And we need to get rid of this crazy federal legislation that doesn't allow us to buy cannabis from other states. But hopefully that changes soon. One thing I was really curious to dive into with Lou is the role of weed in New York City, because New York City is the largest consuming city in the world. And Lou is a born and bred New Yorker. So he shares how he's seen the plant evolve in culture and over the years. And he also shares where he sees the now legal industry heading, which is super interesting, more towards like a food and bev model, which makes a lot of sense as he talks about integrating other ingredients and other plant allies with cannabis. And it also feels on the pulse as we're seeing the rise, like huge rise of cannabis THC beverages in the country. So yeah, like I said, he has a pulse on this industry and on this plant like no one else. So overall, I just love his integrative approach to cannabis. He sees it as one of the many plant allies that can help us feel better, heal ourselves, become a more empathetic and kind society, less violent, he notes, and also just live in a more conscious way. So without further ado, let's dive into the deep wisdom of Lou Sagar. Hello. Hi, Lou.
Hey,
I am so excited. Welcome to Higher Spirits.
welcome to Sub
Thank you.
Crossy Studio.
Live from New York City. This is a really special episode. We're here with Lou Sagar, who is the founder of Alchemist Kitchen.
Yep.
And also on your journey, the Bowery Cannabis Club.
Yes, that was it's in the resume.
Yeah. So we are going to dive into the history and experience of cannabis as a plant medicine in New York City. And I say this is a really special episode, not just because we're here live, which I'm so glad that you proposed we do this. It's really fun to be in this space with you. But back in 2018, when this shop used to be in 2nd Avenue, I first bought CBD for the very first time.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
from your shop. And I used it to help heal a neck injury I had. I had 2 herniated discs in my neck. And it was prescribed a Valium. And I was like, there has to be something better than this. So I tried CBD. I went on high dose regimen and it worked. I was able to sleep so much better. And after that, I became kind of obsessed with this plant and understanding how it was working in the body. So I started taking classes in the basement of Alchemist Kitchen. And that was the beginning of my...
I mean, I think that's why we had such a good connection, because you have a history with us, and we're 6 years old, and so we've seen a lot, we've learned a lot, we've had to live through, New York in 6 years has gone through a lot of different changes, but to reacquaint with you now that you're doing this podcasting around cannabis and all plant medicines, it's really nice. So I'm excited that we can get a chance to chat, and the whole idea of doing more podcasting live from the spot as opposed to, things that are a little bit more staged, it's interesting.
Okay, so let's start off. We're here to talk about one of our favorite plants, cannabis. And I'd love to know what your personal relationship with the plant is. Do you use it in your personal practice? Have you in your life? Like, how is it woven through your life?
I would say cannabis for me, I was a fairly serious user daily
Yeah.
for many years. Um, and, I think it was a cultural thing. I used it for stress, change of state. I think that, I think that that I didn't initially, like most people, I mostly had a recreational relationship with it. Get high. Alcohol was never my go-to. I didn't come from a family that was doing a lot of alcohol, so weed, yeah, cannabis was just really, really important. And then I think all through, even going through a period in my life where psychedelics and LSD had a very strong recreational moment, particularly in the culture and music and the culture of even going all the way back to hippie days, still weed was important. I was a deadhead, so I had a period of life where I was, 5, 6, 7 years very deeply committed, going to the concerts, feeling embraced by that music. Yeah. So, and that was pretty much weed centered, you know. Yeah. Um, but then I started working. I had an apprenticeship in the sense of a groupie love with Terence McKenna. And McKenna, for those of you, you should read his work. He was just a brilliant ethnobiologist and really was one of the first educators and scientists who went to the Amazon to study plant medicine. And yeah, he was a very important influence in terms of understanding cannabis.
Yeah, there's a 2017 Maps talk with Kathleen Harrison that I found many years ago, and it's one of my favorite because she says it's amazing that everyone knows Terrence for his work with fungi and mushrooms and psychedelics, but really his closest ally was cannabis. And yeah, his teachings and his writings on the plant as well have been
We lost very early. His brother Dennis is still alive. But whenever I'm talking about cannabis or psychedelics, I feel a desire to kind of bring people's attention to the elders. And some of those elders are still with us. And reading their work, whether it was Terence Gabor Mate, just brilliant, brilliant guy in terms of understanding our normalcy. And I think that's what people using cannabis really should be more mindfulness to it, right? So not so easy in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely become primarily a recreational substance more than a plant medicine in society. Um, and I think that could shift a little bit, and that's kind of the whole point of this podcast.
Because I think the first generation of money, capitalistic side of the industry was grow a lot of it, sell a lot of it, and it got commodified and marginalized quite a bit because it was a financial mindset. And the people who were the great growers, in Humboldt, and people really deeply dedicated, I think ultimately got very disappointed, particularly if you look at California, as a baseline. And a lot of the great growers moved up to Oregon and birthed they all moved into fungi, many of them. And so I love going and spending time with growers. So I think now that the industry, very little money has been made in this industry, a lot going public and all kinds of stuff. So I think as that's starting to go into the next generation, how can we bring cannabis into a better relationship for personal growth healing. We have that.
Yeah.
That better opportunity now that we have had,
Yeah. And you're doing a lot of that work here at the Alchemist Kitchen.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Alchemist Kitchen and like how did this magical place, for people who don't know, Alchemist Kitchen is a plant shop of all sorts. And it's now here in Soho. It used to be on Second Ave. But how did Alchemist Kitchen come to be?
So the Alchemist Kitchen was birthed out of the desire to reacquaint people with the power of plants and mushrooms and different types of herbal remedies. We kind of think of ourselves as a botanical apothecary. Um, we've always had this attitude of educate first.
Yeah.
So ask the herbalist, come in, have an intention, have a consultation. We've always had that part of our personality in terms of educating. Well, I was, and some of our real team leaders were very influenced by the divine feminine. So cannabis is a sacred plant,
Yeah.
and the whole DNA of the witch,
Okay.
of the witch really so misunderstood, and that the witch was really the teacher. That's where you'd go in the town to get the herbs,
Yeah.
the good plants for healing. So the witch is also a big part of our kind of DNA, and definitely the learning through cannabis, women's empowerment, sisterhood, everything that has gone on, trying to bring us all into a better feeling, more gender fluid. So the cannabis, the feminine side of the cannabis really more emotionally feeling good, feeling empathetic for society, feeling more optimistic for society. That was a big part of the Alchemist Kitchen's agenda, but not necessarily cannabis, although when we opened on East First, we were really more concerned about that the DEA was going to raid us
Oh.
than the FDA.
Okay.
It was still like,
Yeah.
okay, what are you selling? There was medical marijuana, but there was no recreational yet.
Yeah.
But then we had a huge first mover advantage because we were very early. We one of the first to actually put CBD, grow it, cultivate it, educate, show people don't buy CBD if you don't look at the testing results. Coming at it not medically, but medicinally, not recreationally, because it wasn't legal.
Yeah.
And we enjoyed a lot of success because CBD, does it get you high? I don't want to be high.
Yeah.
Yes. You sure you don't want to be high? No, I don't want to be high. What can it do? Oh, no, it doesn't make you feel relaxed. Okay.
Yeah.
Stress. It's for stress.
Yeah.
Oh, you have inflammation. It's very anti-inflammatory because it's very, very tricky how scientific you should get. There's an endocannabinoid system and that with. Most people, they just wanted to say, can I take it to sleep? Can I take it for stress? That kind of thing. So, and then we started formulating it. We developed a brand called Plant Alchemy. We made tinctures and capsules, and it's still a big part of our profile.
Yeah.
And it allowed us also to in the sense of herbalism,
Mm-hmm.
which I think we really have tried to embrace. Cannabis is not a big friend. The herbalists don't know so easily how to deal with cannabis. It's only been recently. A lot of the American Herbal Society kind of didn't want to really embrace cannabis until recently. It was more, you got to take your nettles for this. You got to take your damiana for this. So it's assimilated more integrated now.
Yeah. Yeah. Alchemist Kitchen was the first place I saw cannabis on the shelves amongst all of the other herbs.
Yeah.
So that was.
And it was still a time. This is just 6 years, not like, we're talking about 20 years.
Yes.
People were saying they were still interested in alternative medicine. Today, it's all integrative medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So we work a lot with therapists and doctors that are integrative. and then how to bring cannabis into that experience. I think that the challenge right now in this moment is the consumer is looking for very, very high dosages of THC.
Yeah.
How much? So you go to the player, the bartender said, well, how much THC do you need? 20%, 26, I want the most. Okay, the most.
Most bang for your
The
buck.
most bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And if you got splatter and you got that, so that recreational focus has distracted the ability for some dispensaries to come in and look at the marketplace for across all things,
Yeah.
pain, sleep, like we have done.
Yeah.
And then I think that that's something for the future, But right now, wouldn't you agree? I mean, I think that's a big challenge.
I absolutely, and I chuckle a little bit because anyone who's been listening to this, every single episode I've done of this will be episode 8 or 9, depending on when we release it, unsolicited, every guest, and I have to agree, talks about the dosage. And it's we're taking this masculine archetype that we've kind of applied to like everything in culture. More is better, stronger is better, and we're applying it to a plant that's naturally around 5 to 7% THC, and we're modifying it to be this like crazy thing that blasts you off, and then you have people wondering why do I get anxiety when I smoke? Why am I getting paranoid? Why do I get headaches? And it's too strong.
Yeah, it's too strong.
Yeah.
And I think that other thing, I think that we're also very, very current is we have a consumer who is very anxious and motivated to temper alcohol consumption.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to
Yeah.
drink as much.
Yeah.
Moving from drinking to sipping.
Yeah.
Enjoy a beautiful mezcal, a glass of wine,
Yeah.
botanical spirits. Yes, that's awesome. But in terms of alcohol, but drink it. Not only also to say how expensive drinking is. It's very, very expensive. There's a kind of a reaction now of I don't want that. I got to get up the next day. All right, so then the question starts to be, well, they're going to beverage.
Yeah.
With this THC infused beverage, which just a few years ago, first generation, it just tasted so bad.
Yeah.
So now the flavor profiles are better.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of people who were former cannabis users. Very, very, it's very appealing.
Yeah.
I don't have to drink the alcohol. I can have a little thing. I can be social, and I get a nice buzz.
Yeah.
And that, I think we're really noticing that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot more of mixing, cannabis with mushroom. A lot going on in that non-alcoholic space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You carry a bunch of them. I'm always interested in it because, I mean, personally, my lungs can't take smoking all the time.
Yeah.
So I definitely the drink space is blowing up.
Yeah.
We're gonna see so much more.
Yeah.
And hopefully that can bring some of the like more microdose titration versus just the really high doses of
And then there's a nice movement in the culinary, like here, our chief, chef and culinary doing very, very interested in how can we bring cannabis a little bit more into the culinary experience?
Yeah.
Which is, when when I opened the Alchemist kitchen, cannabis was not legal, right?
Yeah.
So I happened to live in a loft, a big loft, 3,500 square feet, right here, Crosby Stewart.
Nice.
On the top floor. And we said, well, let's start a club. Let's start a club. Because we're selling the CBD, everybody wants to get the other stuff.
The THC.
Yeah, the THC. So we'll start a club, and we start this club called the Bowery Cannabis Club.
Oh, I remember.
And we started having, events, parties, And it, what, how, and oh, you got to go have a dinner party.
Yeah.
Get the chef to make some
Yeah.
dinner. Okay. By the time you had the appetizer already so stuffed, you know, was very much spaced it out, get to dessert.
Yeah.
People, but the Bowery Cannabis Club was really very pioneering and formidable because it gave everyone a chance. We're probably doing what you experienced in Barcelona. You were talking about underground
Yeah.
and the parties and the culture. That's what was happening in New York.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun because people would come to the Bowery Cannabis Club event, and we'd be serving things from the Alchemist kitchen. And we had a couple of we'd have a couple of pop-ups, and some dudes would come in with all their weed and all kinds of accessories, and it was pretty fun. Yeah.
So was Bowery Cannabis Club at any point like a medical license?
No.
Or it was just like a social underground?
The thinking was we would get a recreational license
Yeah.
for Bowery Cannabis Club because Alchemist Kitchen was a little more holistic as opposed to just being in cannabis.
Yeah.
So it was really birthed it, but mostly birthed as a community, and it was great. You had a lot of the women who wanted to go into cannabis. Social justice was a very big theme.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of people that were advocating that the first dispensary should be given to people that had been incarcerated. So it was a lot of good activism, very positive activism.
Yeah.
And very diverse. A lot of women of color, people of color, gender fluid, very nice, mix of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really beautiful community. I got to go to a few events, and yeah, I can attest to.
Yeah.
I can definitely attest to that. Yeah. Okay, so you've been talking about cannabis and herbs and plant medicines and neurotropics and all of these adaptogens way before this wave that they become popular. How did you come to all of these medicines?
I think personally, I was blessed that I never really struggled with depression or low throughs. I came from a very loved, family.
Yes.
And I'm an Aquarian, so I fly a lot of ideation.
Yes.
I think my experience with LSD very early, was very formidable, really understanding that there is a different reality than the reality.
Yeah, then.
Meanwhile, I was trying to figure out what to do for a living. So I had a lot of specialty retail experience, both in my family. So we're the last generation of, we'd say, New York merchants, know how to create a nice environment and really teach people how to sell, be merchants. Just before things moved to the internet.
Okay.
So, in any event, the relationship to plants, fragrance, the relationship to everything around plants, I just had a really good vibe, had a really close, especially for most guys don't go in that direction. They don't know that much about flowers or what is that,
Yeah.
But for me, it was a really important influence, and probably somewhat coming from the grandma,
Yeah.
my ancestry, but otherwise, no, I really like to entertain people.
Yeah.
And then, so if you come into the Alchemist kitchen, there's a playlist that's pretty choreographed. We have beautiful sensorial incensers that we're wearing. So the atmosphere of trying to create an atmosphere for people to shop and engage, it's kind of one of my, gifts.
Yeah.
But then you want people to have an elevated mood experience, So cannabis and other ancestral medicines. Now we're doing a lot of work with ancestral, but that was my motivation.
Yeah.
It really came from a pretty natural.
Yeah. How do you see cannabis fitting in with the other ancestral medicines and plant allies?
Well, I think now you're going to see The trending ancestrals right now, ancestrals, just so you know, are medicines, plants, or mushrooms where you're actually working with the indigenous. There's no somebody in the middle yet getting and making something. Okay. And part of that comes from our activism of wanting to be authentic, right? Are you in the business of plant medicine? The dedication should always be to be as close as you can to get to the seed.
Amen.
As possible. Okay. Yeah. So we have these ancestral medicines. So one is kind of cacao. So cacao is really becoming very popular.
Yeah.
And cacao has a lot of great potential to merge with cacao.
Yeah.
They really like it.
They do.
Believe it or not, there's not too much product on the market because they're just not been done yet.
Yeah.
You know? But the taste of the cacao and the scent and cannabis, beautiful opportunity of coming together. Then there's kana. Kana is a South African meat.
Yep.
It's been done by the Indians for 3,000 years. It's super ancestral.
Yep.
It's been cultivated and smoked. It's kind of like a mild, it's a pathogen, so it's very, you get energy, but it's very calming to the heart. You know, many good benefits.
Yeah.
We consider it more a heart healer.
Yeah. They call it nature's MDMA, right?
Nature's MDMA.
Yeah.
Yes. But people right now, they're looking for either elevation of mood, creativity, productivity, or heart healing.
Yeah.
So the ancestral medicines such as cacao, kana, kava is the South Pacific, no kava more as a beverage perhaps, or
Yeah.
kava bars, stuff. But we are really dedicated to these now ancestral medicines. One good thing about the ancestrals is they're legal.
Yeah.
They're just not that known.
Yeah.
And so we're cultivating, we're extracting very high potency. All of those, I think we could reintroduce cannabis. The problem right now with cannabis is I don't want to be high or it's too strong. I mean, there's this very strong perception. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Every day something tells me it doesn't really work for me. Well, that's probably because of dosage. What do you roll it and get? Okay. People have moved and migrated to gummies where it's more measured. A lot of people are using gummies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's more measured and you're more reliable of what the effect is going to be.
Yeah. Question on that. When you say when people say, oh, cannabis doesn't work for me, it just doesn't work. Do you, I've come now talking to lots of people and working with this plant for a long time.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's the mindset. I mean, when it's set and setting, and when you approach something with the idea that it's not going to work for you, I mean, cannabis isn't doing anything to you. It's really showing you what is already there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to have a good relationship with a plant that you insist doesn't work for you.
I agree. But you know, I don't know how many, when they were 16 in high school, they're 40 now, 50. They had their first marijuana puff. And before they know it, they had 4 guys. They got terrified because they felt like they were losing control.
Yeah.
And swore off marijuana for life.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of it is mindset and the conditioning.
Yeah.
Because people have tried marijuana at the wrong saying, I did it on the boat. And I didn't know who I was. And, you know, and it's very easy to get out of control.
Yeah.
And I think control is a big issue for people when they're using plant medicine.
Yeah.
How do you want to be out of control? Yeah, I want to be in control so I can surrender to some other experience. Okay. But a lot of people, they don't like marijuana because they don't feel like they're not sure what it's going to do.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the most beautiful lessons that plant medicines, including cannabis, has taught me is to let go of control. I think that's when you form the best, when you have the best experiences, is when you surrender. Exactly. and that softening is not taught to us in society.
Yeah.
We need to maintain control and
Yeah.
have our heads down. And
Yeah. Yeah. And also just culture. Oh, you're a stoner. You don't drink, so we can't really go out drinking. You're a stoner. Whereas there's Las Vegas. Las Vegas, right? We have a relationship with the futurists of Las Vegas. A big problem. When you drink, you gamble. Stoners don't gamble.
So gamble.
So Las Vegas is going crazy. They got to build the sphere for the stoners.
Oh my gosh, I
They got to make the money. They got to make the money. Because the stoners do not, they sport bet, but they can't gamble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
totally true. They tell us you're so stoners.
Hey, how about opening an elixir bar at the Wynn, so that way we could, maybe we catch some stoners,
I mean, I heard they opened up a whole cannabis hotel in Vegas, and it's called the Lexi.
Yeah. It's great.
Yes. Just one thing I think I'll go.
Yeah, that's it.
But and I got gambling. It's a different yeah.
That's an energy.
Yeah.
So, but I really think cannabis, next generation, next 5 years, more culinary application,
Yeah.
more incorporation and mixing and blending cannabis with mushroom.
Yeah. Functional mushrooms or psychedelic mushrooms?
I think it's going to initially be functional.
Yeah.
I mean, psychedelics is very strong right now. We have a very strong business in microdosing and educating people to how to properly use psychedelic formulations.
Yeah.
And many of those people who do mushroom generally don't do weed.
Yeah.
You don't get too many people go back and forth, But I think incorporating and finding certain terpenes like the CBNs and the CBGs that are the subcannabinoids that now we can grow the plant more affordably to get that resin more dominant, so you can use it for thought and use it for sleep.
Yeah.
It's much more sedative than CBD. But you have this queen of the throne, CBD,
Yeah.
as kind of this gateway into all these other cannabinoids.
Yeah.
And I think the innovation would be now to start marketing the terps and marketing the sub-ingredients blended. And I think you're going to see chefs and other mixologists and mixologists start to do that. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I saw some really beautiful terpene work from Abstracts. They're coming out with some really cool stuff, because I don't think people realize that terpenes are actually some of the most. That's what's causing a lot of the effects that you're feeling is the terpenes. It's not just the cannabinoids. Like linalool in lavender is why lavender makes you feel calm and sedated.
And almost market it where you didn't know it was a cannabinoid.
Yeah.
It's marketing the terp. Oh, where does that come from? Oh, that does come from the cannabis plant. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start with cannabis first, you got a lot of media perceptions of what it is that have,
generations of propaganda in a fight.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially in a Trumpian, a Trumpian period where cannabis is not the lead. Lead is not what people do.
Yeah.
I think that in any event, it's gonna blossom if we continue to communicate and get more talent into working.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you see? I'm curious to see where you see the cannabis industry going, our relationship with the plant, and also I'd love to know, New York City is the biggest cannabis consuming city in the world. And you've been here for your whole life. How have you seen the evolution of New York in weed culture?
Yeah.
And then where do you see the potential of it going?
Well, the weed culture in, I think, in New York was probably not that dissimilar to other big cities, but I think most parents, the last generation or two, they were much more permissive around weed because they didn't want the kids doing cocaine.
Yeah.
And heroin. New York City's gritty, so you gotta, a lot of things get quite extreme. Cocaine was a very big party drug during my upbringing, heroin and ecstasy and all that. But the weed was very permitted in the household because maybe they won't drink so much. Certain cultures.
Yeah.
So that was the first round, and it was very plentiful because it was black market.
Yeah.
Very plentiful, and for a while pretty expensive. I think now it's the underground is probably still quite powerful.
I'd be curious. Yeah, I know in California it's still 60%. Roughly. Of,
60%.
yeah, now that it's legal here.
And part of it is that people don't trust the quality. It, do- Come on, the people in Napa Valley know how to make wine. You know, New York, they don't know how to grow wheat. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I promise if you want to know,
Yeah.
come on, guys. I mean, let's just fly to Portland and we'll get some wheat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think New York State has got a ways to go.
Yeah.
That, of course, indoor you can do a lot of stuff, and products probably getting better.
Yeah.
But then it's heavily regulated, heavily taxed. Remember that but the rules here are a little looser. You know, what you can do, you can sell other products. If you go some of the kind of the cooler, hipper
Yeah.
dispensaries, they're running boutiques.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little, I think they've set up the industry more for success than they did in California.
Yeah.
But it is true. It's like, okay, I used to have someone who came to my house, delivered this for me. It was cheaper. It was better weed, probably from California.
Of course.
And now you want me to go to a dispensary, pay more money, and it's not as good of a product.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think until we're allowed to sell over state lines and you have regions like California, Oregon, Washington that really grow the plant well, able to sell their product across the country, until then, we're going to have a illicit market.
I agree. And I think that, I don't know. I don't think in this next 4 years with Trump, a Trumpian type of mindset, they may not do a federal reclassification.
Yeah.
Which is really very, very problematic for the industry.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, okay, for people who don't know what reclassification means.
So, cannabis is still at the federal level controlled substance.
Number one.
Number one. So that means you can't bank it. You can't, terms of service, anything to do with cannabis, even CBD today, you still can't promote it on a Facebook or any.
Yeah.
You get shut down. We go through we've had tremendous disability in not being able to promote CBD.
Yeah.
So marijuana is just that much worse. So if you can't federally legalize it, so then every state, you got to grow it and sell it within the state because you can't ship it from state to state. Okay. There is an advocacy that's pretty good because farmers can, your farmer in Michigan, sell it in Detroit, bring farmers and the cities together. There's an advocacy for that. But the underlying problem is it's not legal, so you can't bank it, so everything gets shady, even under the legal.
Yeah.
And the tax structure, and it's quite a.
Yeah. And it's really hard to study as a Schedule I substance, because Schedule I means that there's no redeeming medical qualities at all.
Right.
Which is crazy. Just for reference, like cocaine is Schedule II. But so we can't study it. So there's like so much that we don't know, and we won't be able to know until they reschedule it. So I just wanted to highlight that for people who don't know what rescheduling entails.
And if people say, well, why wouldn't it happen? It only that the priorities of where it seems like the government is, the priorities don't seem to be, their people don't profit from that.
No.
So until people profit from something and pay to play, that may not happen. We may be surprised it might happen. I mean, but I think right now with research and so on. We need more of it, but perhaps it'll happen a little more in Europe. But even Europe is so, I mean, it's worse than here, you know.
Yeah.
Go to UK is so conservative. We have a deal to open in London, you know. So
Oh, amazing.
we're thinking, we're licensing, you know. And, you know, I mean, our whole attitude is, wait a minute, the UK, let's go get these beautiful herbalists from Wales, you know, and bring them into an Alchemist kitchen experience in the UK. Not to export, but bring local energy. Same thing in Japan, you know, we're looking in Tokyo. The thing is all those countries have witches and herbalists and sorcerers and people that have not been presented properly to the contemporary urban user, just like here.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of our future is trying to do that on a global scale.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well,
It's easy to you don't open in Williamsburg. I don't want to eat in Williamsburg.
Yeah. Yeah. You can go further and wider than that. Yeah.
But it is very important that we build communities through your work and many others to show people that plant medicine is a great option for many pharmaceutical choices.
Yep.
And the more that people can look at those options, self-directed, and see where they can use and incorporate plant medicines, medicinal mushrooms into their lifestyle, the better.
Yeah.
Because they work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they work. They were here before pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. And also tie into our ancestral,
Yeah.
which is really important, you know, to feel connected. We always ask people, you know, where's your grandma from? And they always tell you that the grandma had the medicine. You were sick, she made you a soup.
Yes.
But the mommy took us to the doctor, you know, the last 80 years. So, okay, I give up. Just, you know, let's go Western, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the medicinal benefits, particularly of cannabis, are outstanding, but plant medicine in general. But also, I think of culturally, like you were mentioning at the beginning of our conversation, just how it's a gentle, it makes you more empathetic, it makes you more open. How do you, if cannabis were just to start being more widely accepted, like we talk about in our fairyland, let's say 5 to 10 years from now, how do you think society could benefit from that?
Well, much less tension and threat of violence.
Yeah.
It's not, we have a very violent society right now. You know, so for me, violence and volatility are two very big themes that cannabis to chill out, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think cannabis is ideal for naughty now. Like if you want to go to see what it's like to talk to the elves, I would do psychedelics or those cannabis. Yeah, true. If you want to jump to the other side, you can get reacquainted with end of life. You're not going to do cannabis.
Yeah.
To do some, you know, DMT, you know, just other formulations. Should always be done in a mindful way, but intention's pretty important. So I think cannabis, people just not sure how to incorporate what is that intention other than chilling out, you know.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, and people's perception of that is that you smoke because you just want to be lazy. You just want to be lazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's not a good
intention.
It's not a good intention for people to think, oh, you're smoking weed. Don't talk to him now. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. And it's not even really an intention, because actually I think being lazy can be very healthy. We could benefit from being lazy a little bit more, but to bring the attention and intention to the moment of using cannabis, be like, I want to use this actually to be lazy.
Yes.
And that's where the medicine
Take an afternoon.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. Taking afternoon naps, we should bring them back.
Great.
So
Siesta.
you
So
have a
hot.
couple of hits, and you get in the helmet and you take a nap. You know, might change everything.
It would change
So
New
I
York
think,
City a
but,
lot.
but I, don't you agree though that starting to have some fun in pairing and intention? Because so many people they don't know. They want to be told, "What do I do with it?"
Yes, yes. I mean, I think it learning to use cannabis to enhance an experience rather than it be an experience itself. I
So important.
Yeah, is
Say
what
that again.
using cannabis to enhance an experience rather than be the experience. Yeah, you're not doing it to get high.
Right.
You're getting high to meditate, to paint, to cook, to laugh with your friends, and that's the intention.
Yeah.
And I think when people realize that, it'll make them.
That's very astute, really, because I think that is a roadblock right now.
Yeah.
And the consumer, oh, it smell like weed in the park. Everybody just, what's we doing?
Great. Better than trash.
Yes. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth to bringing, we like the term ritual and trying to get people come back into your flow. If our goal is to really be our authentic self,
Yeah.
because if not, you might as well call it a day because AI is coming. And cannabis, I think where cannabis can really help us right now is get in touch with your authentic self, your creative self, so that the AI comes, you're the master.
Yes. Can just
Don't do the work that you had to do.
Yeah.
Forget what you learned in college.
Yeah.
The cannabis, focusing on your strengths. Everybody has strengths. Bring them forward. Cannabis could be a great way. What form of ingestion shall we do that?
That's the next question.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, what would you say?
Well, I would ask, it would depend on the experience that they had and what they're using it for. So smoking it is a quick onset. It's very manageable and it kind of tapers off somewhat slowly.
Yeah.
Vaping tapers off even more quickly.
Yeah.
But then when you eat it, it's ingested through your liver. So it's actually a completely different high. I mean,
So there, you're touching on another thing.
Yeah.
So edible, most people would say, oh, I use a gummy.
yeah,
Okay. Or in a chocolate, But because of dosage, it's been terrorizing a lot of people.
yeah,
They don't know what 10 milligrams going to do to them. Like, you're going to get really but they don't know.
yeah.
So people are petrified.
Well, yeah.
I took this brownie, and it took me 4 days to get over it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that is a lack of responsibility.
Yeah, an
On the
education.
part of the industry.
Yeah,
Because I agree with you. I think edible is the way to go. You could take an edible and, we have these caramels. They're really, really good. You eat a little bit.
yeah,
And you can get through your whole day. It really does.
yeah.
But there's a void there, don't you think? There's a void there in terms of
Absolutely.
dosing and how much to take and
Yeah. And well, we walk into a dispensary and they have drinks that are 100 milligrams. Or I did cannabis coaching years ago, and I was working with one client who was a veteran, and he's like, I heard that cannabis can be amazing for PTSD and all of these things. And I tried it, and it triggered my PTSD unlike anything I've ever experienced. He goes, but I'm really dedicated to finding a more holistic remedy. And I asked him, like, what did the bud tender give you?
yes.
25 milligrams for a man who's never done cannabis before, has a history of PTSD, and is a veteran. And I always felt so sad for him and really upset. So I think, yeah, we need right now, the earnest is on the bud tenders to be the liaison between the product and the people, and they're not even receiving proper education. So, yeah, we're going to try to fix that.
And their incentive, the incentive structure is dumb it down, at least, but act intelligent. but you're not really asking too many questions. Okay, what do you want? What? Because form of ingestion is usually the primary focus in the engagement, right? What are you looking? You want it to this? So you want flour?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think things just have to get more sophisticated in the intentions.
Yeah. Well, you've been a beautiful guidepost of how to do that.
Well, we like to do more of that.
Yeah, there will.
We may go and get a license, but right now I think it's just the environment is so tricky.
Yeah, it's just heating up.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we close, I was thinking we can also open it up to some questions from people here. But is there anything else you want to leave the conversation with? Any things unsaid?
We're all happy.
Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me. Does anyone have any questions for Lou or myself about cannabis, plant medicine, anything? Yeah.
So, as somebody who has been doing this for a really long time, you ever foresee this, was there ever a time 30 years ago that you were like, this is like possible?
I always felt like it's kind of feeling like an outlier, right? So I've always felt a little bit like an outlier, like what? Well, where's the politic that cannabis is so restricted, so criminalized, And so that's a control. It's like the central bank wants to control the money. Okay? The money's broken today. So you need new ways to look at money. Yeah. Well, 30 years ago, that's how I looked at drugs. Well, let's go away from it. You're going to tell me that starting cocaine, that's the same thing. Yeah. Not the same thing, Something, yeah. And then, you start to build camaraderie with people who are more intelligent and some of the greats, the great comics, the lead, Richard Pryor. I used to go to Richard Pryor every night when he would go sing. How about Lenny Reeves? These guys, man, they spoke weed. Yeah. I grew up with those type of points of, comics and musicians. Louis Armstrong smoked weed every single day and that, every minute of every day. So I think that was, I think that motivated me to understand that there's some central controlling function of the society, a politic that I felt kind of like changed to. So I always was a dead. Hey, you know, did you have any conversations with Dennis McKenna? With Dennis? No, Terrence. Yes. Yeah.
What was he like outside of last year with his speech?
He was actually a pretty quiet, introspective guy. He was, but he liked weed too. Liked weed, but he could go into I don't know, just in free form, speak it and articulate it. That is just like listening to it. But I had two experiences. One with him and one with Fuller, Buckminster Fuller, who was very famous on the geodesic dome. And he was a scientist. So these guys could just talk. And when Terrence, the way he got around Terrence was go to, when he was speaking at universities, go here. I will fly to, it's like going to a concert.
Yeah.
But he would come and do 2-3 days at a Columbia or 92nd Street Wall, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then I got a little closer in, where I would be able to listen to him in a small group and ask questions and very, very under recognized for the power and influence.
Yeah. So just the way he spoke, the way his words just.
Yeah, and never really, he was, pre-internet.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of good audio, and you don't have a lot of mostly audio stuff. It's not like you see him talking.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't go on, Dick Cavett. You know, he wasn't going to television. No, anyway, not to take much time with that, but yeah, but he was special.
He was amazing.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I think this might be the best episode of Life Experience yet. Well, I'm so appreciative of this, though. Sometimes, yeah, there's just a resonance of I truly just believe in what you're doing here in the community. So, yeah, Don't forget to subscribe to support this plant-powered exploration. And if you have any questions, are curious, or have ideas for collaborations, give me a follow on Instagram at HigherLexi. I also want to remind you that we're not making any medical recommendations or claims on this podcast. And if you do choose to explore cannabis, please do so mindfully. And until next time, keep the vibe high, friends.